All right, guys, welcome back to the High Side Podcast. We are just ahead of Kansas. Um, Finished up a race at New Hampshire, and it ended with Blaney winning the race. Josh,
Yeah, he's stringing together a really good run at the right time, and I think that particular track layout, Penske as a whole, really him and Logano for sure might have cemented themselves as the favorite in my opinion.
yeah. Well, I think honestly, like I don't know, maybe I'm reaching here, but I feel like Blaney is just carrying Penske as it is.
Yeah, when it comes to speed, he's definitely the only one that's had it on a consistent basis throughout most of the entire season. I think I was looking and before, and he's on like a 10 or 11 race streak right now where he hasn't finished any worse than eighth outside of one race at Darlington, and he was just kind of behind on when the cautions kept falling in that race.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I sent you a screenshot maybe a week ago, and it showed Blaney out of all the Fords had 11 top manufacturer finishes um, within the Ford camp. And obviously, New Hampshire should put him at number 12. And I think the next guy was like Busher with 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct. That was basically, like 30 some percent of the races to that point. So he's been killing it compared to to the other four drivers. Of course, there's not as quite as many as like Chevrolet, but he's even beaten those drivers more often than Hamlin or Larson have drivers for their respective manufacturers.
Yeah. It's quite staggering actually to see the dominance out of the 12, out of that camp. It's been even for me to see how well RFK Racing has done between Busher, Kozlowski, and Priest in terms of whenever they have like highest finisher within the Ford camp. I think altogether they've done it like 8 times. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but somewhere around there. So, even you're putting them above the other two Penske cars, and arguably Penske's the number one Ford camp right now. So it's pretty cool to see as a RFK fan.
Yeah, I actually went and found that graph, and between the three of them, they have 12 best finishes between the three drivers, and all three of them, like you said, are right behind Blaney in that category, and ahead of both Joey Logano and Austin Cindric in the actual Penske cars. They're obviously ahead of Josh Berry as well. Berry and Logano have 2 best finishes all season, and Cindric has 1.
Yeah, Berry was trying to make it 3. Just couldn't get to Blaney there. It's impressive what he was doing on, was it no tires?
Yeah, he had just a little bit older, I believe. But you put that guy out on a short track with a good race car, he's gonna prove that he can get it done. We saw his, I think, debut in the Cup Series when he was driving the 9 car when Chase Elliott got hurt. Yeah, he went and had a really good run at Richmond's too.
Yeah, I think that team's probably had the chase not go their way at all, or sorry, the playoffs, and absolutely wish the rest of the races could have gone how New Hampshire did for them. Even getting spun out, still able to rally back to get that second place finish and hold off guys like William Byron who have been consistent.
Oh yeah, that is a terrible first round, but that had to have been a pretty good shot in the arm for them. And then we get ready to go to Kansas, which is very similar to a track he won at earlier in the season at Las Vegas. So he might be able to do it again.
Yeah, it seems like now's about the time where the Fords start showing speed, or widening out the track. In Keselowski's case, trying to relocate the inside barrier there off of 2, to take it. What was it, 5 wide there for a pass? Didn't work out too well, but you know.
Yeah, you say Ford seems to be finding the speed. Like we mentioned, Blaney has kind of had it. But what did you make of Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick being pretty much non-factors at New Hampshire? Wallace ran a lap down on speed, and he's still in the top 12.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's definitely got a hole to climb out of now, but it is kind of strange because I know is it just the slow flat tracks that they've been struggling at, or is this a new struggle that they have?
I would think it'd maybe be something new. The Gibbs cars have been really good of late, and Bubba Wallace in particular has been really pretty good of late, and it's not a great time to lay an egg, and both the 23 and 45 did at New Hampshire for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely not the right time for mistakes to happen, and yeah, that's going to put both of them 11th and 12th. The other two down there, Cindric and Chastain. Chastain's just been kind of riding around, I think, in the points. I haven't really seen much of him lately.
Yeah, I got to think he'll make one more splash at some point before the maybe the round or just the season is over. Find a way to potentially get into the round of 8 and see how far he can go. But you mentioned mistakes. We saw a bit of a internal team rivalry this weekend at New Hampshire between Denny Hamlin and Ty Gibbs, where Gibbs got taken completely out of the race. What do you think that meeting was like this morning at Joe Gibbs?
I don't know. That's a good question. A lot of folks are actually even forgetting about the altercation between Gibbs and Bell shortly before he got spun off of Hamlin. When they were racing 3 wide for however many laps that was. And I guess Bell had come off the bottom lane a bit much and hit Gibbs in his door a couple too many times for Gibbs's liking, and door slammed him down the front straightaway. So it seems like, I mean, in my opinion, I've got nothing against hard racing, but there's a time and a place. I don't know what it's like to drive with these stages. Like, is it? I have to imagine if I'm Ty Gibbs, I know that the stages are probably more important for my teammates. So maybe I'm not going to race them 3 wide, especially that many consecutive laps. And then I don't put full blame on Hamlin for the contact either, because granted, Hamlin is at that point he's the buffer. He gets control of the accelerator, the brake pedal, but Gibbs was also not in that lane to start that corner. He shoved his rear end down in front of Hamlin. And I guess Hamlin said, well, I'm not changing my pace now that you're here. You put yourself in there, so I'm just going to stay at the pace I'm at. If you get wrecked, you get wrecked. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. I think I have to imagine that Gibbs, obviously he's the young kid. He feels like he should be number 1 there. It's his name on the building, like Hamlin said, but now is not the time to be, getting or ruffling feathers with teammates when they're the ones trying to get your granddad a championship.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then I mean at the same time, you've got Denny Hamlin, messing around with Ty and causing a wreck that he could have easily potentially been in, but you also Bell was right there that could have taken out Christopher Bell, and he kind of had nothing to do with the scrum really between the two of them.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see if Bell might have said anything about Gibbs. Has anything come out from his angle?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I really enjoyed Ty's post-rec TV interview they did, where he didn't really ever answer the question. He just gave one of them like Kyle Busch type interviews. You remember when Kyle did the "Everything's Great" interview? That's kind of what Ty Gibbs did. He said 3 words, but he said them over and over again, and just kind of ended it. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. Little nod to Kyle Busch. Even though Kyle's not on that team, there's still, his mentality's still there, kind of, in a sense. So, and it's good to see at least some kind of personality coming out from one of these teams. It's not totally statue-like anymore. It seems like people are starting to break out of their bubble again, and it's not so stagnant in the garage area. So I kind of like it.
Yeah, we'll give Kyle Busch um, a little dab up anytime we can, I guess, because it's not really happening for him much anymore on the racetrack. So, if we can talk about him just a little bit, maybe that's a good thing.
And he definitely left his footprint, not only in the sport but at Gibbs. Whether or not Joe wants that footprint there, it's definitely there.
Yeah, for sure. And we're back to a little bit on Ty. We missed Bristol. So we since the last time we recorded, he's been getting really close to that first win, and we watched Bristol together. He ran really well for a lot of that race, and it just didn't quite pan out for him. I got to think with 6 races to go, the pressure is probably really on him to try and get that win and prove something, maybe even prove something to Denny before the season is over. He almost had it at Bristol.
Yeah, I feel like Bristol was a perfect storm for a situation like that. I think it was Bell that said it best, that them winning Bristol meant absolutely nothing because of the circumstances with the tire. And I think a lot of those, Ty Gibbs he's the youngest one there, isn't he?
Yeah.
So him going up there and running as well as he did, I think had a lot to do with because everyone else was disciplined enough to try to save that tire. And Gibbs not having as much experience as some of those guys he was racing around is a clear sign of why it looked like he was so good at Bristol. But the reality of it, I think if you go there in regular conditions, Gibbs doesn't perform. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. And that's probably, we've seen, Carson Hocevar be able to run up front pretty commonly now. But, we got to see guys at Bristol just, rip the high side when everybody else was saving down low and kind of just pass everybody. And that kind of mentality put Hocevar right at the front of the pack to try and win that race right at the end.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we see more. Actually, Logano mentioned something before New Hampshire that Goodyear had brought a tire that was a bit risky, so they opted out of using it. Obviously, they got the chase going on right now or the playoffs, so they don't want to put a tire out there that would just be completely, untested in terms of race conditions. So I can understand if they want to hold that up, but Logano said Goodyear is capable of bringing us more tires like what we've seen at Bristol. So, and I think if we start put even it, even though the racing has gotten better in the next gen car, I think giving more to the driver's ability is needed, and giving us a softer tire, something that the drivers really have to look out for, I think would be super necessary and fun to see on Sundays moving forward. So I hope whatever they've learned at New Hampshire and Bristol and Martinsville, I think they also tested something there, but I hope whatever they learned carries over into 2026.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I heard and saw a lot of people saying that the Bristol deal was just like kind of gimmicky, and the way the tire fell off, kind of quote unquote not true tire fall off. It's just like kind of gimmick tire fall off, which I can kind of get. But whether it seems like it's a gimmick or not, every driver in the field was under the same set of rules and had the same tire compound, and we got to see who could do it much better and who really struggled, and comers and goers, whether it's the kind of fall off we used to see, or if it's quote unquote gimmick fall off. I really enjoy that type of race. You wish it was just like a little bit more regular, just kind of typical NASCAR. But people would have complained if we wouldn't have had that tire, and we would have seen zero passing, or zero mechanical failures because you weren't taking care of it or whatever. But they gave us something, and whether it's weather related or not, they gave us something that had them guys on their toes for the entire race. And as a fan, that's basically everything we've asked for, and I still see people complaining about it. It's kind of crazy.
For sure. And I think, and like right up, just to mention it up front, my favorite style of Bristol racing was like that late 2011, early 2012, like multi-groove Bristol, the least popular version, I think.
Yeah.
But that was my personal favorite because of the lane choice. But ever since they've tried to like step away from that version to go back to the original style, I could be wrong. I've missed some Bristol races over the years, but I feel like this Bristol race was as close to the original Bristol that we've seen in a very long time because of the tires.
Yeah, on TV, it looks like it for sure. But all the complainers will tell you that it's not, just because they were making it look like the old Bristol because they were crawling around there 3 seconds slower than what they were capable of, to make sure that they had some rubber left before they made a pit stop. So it's fun to watch, but I think I've said it on this show before. NASCAR fans are probably the hardest fans in all of sport to please. And even when we have something that's really entertaining, whether your driver is good at it or maybe had some bad luck or whatever, it's never good enough for the majority of people for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think NASCAR shouldn't shy away from hurting feelings anyway. I think it's a good thing that if we've seen an uptick in complaining, that means we've seen an uptick in ratings. And I think that's probably the best you can ask for. And regardless if somebody was having a blast watching it, or if they were just absolutely irritated watching it, as long as they're making noise, I think that's what's important.
Oh yeah. Any noise is good. When people aren't talking, that's when everybody's tuned out. But everybody that complains about every single race on the schedule, I think 99% of the people always tune in to the next race. Because we all love it. We're gonna watch it, whether it's the the best thing on that weekend or not. But all those people, they're still going to go to races, still going to watch them on TV, and NASCAR's gonna, eventually they're gonna get it right. We don't know how long, but I think eventually they'll get it right. But it's never gonna be fast enough for people. Yeah, there could be some kind of scenario where they came out and tell us like 2 weeks later that they ran 900 horsepower at Bristol, and everybody would still be upset.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, I think plate tracks is probably the best example. We've heard nothing but complaining about plate tracks. Like, I mean, as far as I can remember, it's not the same as the Gen 4 races. It's not as good as the Gen 4 races, but guess what? Everybody's watching Daytona and everyone's watching Talladega, regardless of what package, what aero, what car, what setup, whether it's a tapered spacer, restrictor plate, everyone's watching those races. So I don't know. I think making them mad is a good thing too.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's there's a lot of funny NASCAR fans when they're mad. It's pretty great to go on social media. Whether it's Denny Hamlin winning a race or their driver cutting a tire or guys being in fuel save mode, it's always great to go and listen to all the complainers.
Wanted to touch on the Xfinity Bristol race because Eric Almirola picked up a win there, and not to gloss over that, but that Zilich gets another top 5 finish. It just feels like that kid's unstoppable.
Are you telling me Connor Zilich didn't win a race? It's crazy.
I know.
We get the young kid winning all the races, and then the old man decides to race again, and he takes the win away from Sheldon Creed. I think Sheldon Creed ended up with like his 15th career second place finish or something.
Ridiculous. Poor kid. Oh man, I wouldn't know what to do with that many podiums. And Creed's never won, right?
Never won.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd just leave.
Oh yeah, he could be he could have a really good looking career if he even just finished off half of those, or even just a quarter.
Sheldon Creed came as fourth at the worst time, up against Zilich and other veterans that he's been going up against, like Eric Almirola.
Oh yeah, there's always been at least one or two drivers in the top equipment that are just better than the RCR or the Haas factory equipment that he's been in.
Yeah, I wonder how many other drivers throughout time have come in, like really good drivers, but got so severely overshadowed by another driver that they've just fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, it's interesting how those trends work out for some guys. We'll have to go after this and see like what the NASCAR record is for the amount of runner-up finishes before a win. I'm sure somebody good holds the record. I wouldn't be surprised, but that I would be interested to know who holds that. Whether it's the Cup Series or the Xfinity Series or even trucks.
Yeah, I would have to imagine it's Xfinity. But then again, Cup's been around longer.
Yeah, it's possible that it could be Cup, but yeah, I would agree. Probably more than likely Xfinity.
Kind of curious. It's not going to give me a direct answer. Oh wait, Richard Childress driver Tyler Reddick after 5 runner-up finishes. So Creed's got to be leading, right?
And maybe all time, maybe what you were looking at, Reddick might have the most in a row, possibly. I would say it's fair to bet that it probably is all time, at least without a win.
Yeah. I'll have to look into it a little deeper next time we come on here if I remember. But is there anything else you wanted to cover before we close it out?
Well, we got Kansas coming up. The second race of the round of 12. We usually see like the 23-11 guys run good there. We see Kyle Larson. Chase Elliott had a really good run in the spring race at Kansas. Blaney's always good there. Like, it should be a really good race, hopefully, to determine who the next guy is to lock in. So hopefully we get to see a good show next Sunday, and see somebody else lock in, or maybe Blaney will go 2 in a row. Who knows? But definitely looking forward to Kansas. Who do you think would be your pick to win that one?
It's kind of hard for me to lock in on a specific driver, but I feel like with how close RFK Racing has been over the last couple of months, that Kansas would be a perfect time for them to break out of that goose egg. So I'd have to pick somebody from that camp.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good shot. Like I said, I think Hendrick needs to prove that they have the championship speed still. They've kind of been a little bit, just kind of, waiting in the bushes behind Gibbs and Blaney. But I don't know. I think a guy like Ross Chastain is kind of in desperate need of a good run. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kansas as one of the ones that he proves that he's still got the speed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily that he'll win, but it's kind of. I think we talked about it before we came on air that I think some of those guys that are already below the 4, even after one race, are kind of, in my opinion, already and must wins. With a road course coming after Kansas, because that'll just kind of be up in the air who's going to perform well at the Roval.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of see if the final 4, or who, I guess just the final 8 in general, because it's the bubble's so close.
Yeah, it's going to start to materialize this weekend. Especially if there's a new playoff winner. But it wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being Joey Logano, and he wins the race in each round to put himself at Phoenix. Like, I think a lot of people would end up upset by that. He'd kind of be like the an upset of the playoffs for sure. But we always see Logano pop up right at the right time in the final 10.
I think we need another Penske win for NASCAR to look at the format. Because didn't they make this format to like open it up to other people?
Yeah, we saw Jimmy Johnson win everything in the last 3 or 4 formats, and then Penske's won every one since 2022.
I think so. Yeah, because it could have been them in 21 as well if Brad didn't have a bad pit stop.
Yeah, there's a term I've heard thrown around after the Penske cars got their penalties at the Indy 500 when a Penske guy gets in trouble, saying all this race just became Penske perfect whenever they run into trouble. I would say that Penske perfect would be Blaney advancing through like he already did, and then Joey Logano following him up at Kansas with a win.
I think nothing would chat people's asses more than if Austin Cindric made it into the Final Four with those two.
Yeah, imagine Logano wins at Kansas, and out of the three, we've seen Blaney win the Roval, but the road course ace, he hasn't been in the Cup Series, but out of those three, he'd be the least surprising to have a really good run at the Roval to advance.
Yeah, excited to see what happens. But yeah, if you guys keep an eye on our channel here for whenever we post again. Subscribe, like, comment. We're coming to a close here. We're getting close to the end of this thing. I don't know what the plans are moving forward. Interesting to see. And I've been kind of sick. Sorry if I sound weird today. But yeah, you guys have a good one.